to Above All Else, a podcast for women looking to grow in their relationship with Jesus Christ. I am Brianna Frajowski here with Jen Kish and Emily Bird, and we are so excited to be with you guys today. We are part of the We the Church platform, and we're just excited. We talked a little bit about that platform last week, and so you can go back and listen to that or find the link down below in the caption. But we're excited to be back for another week. Emily, tell us about your week. Tell us all about it.
Like a nice deep breath. We've got my mom and I are planning a wedding shower for Madeline and Chase. And so I've got, if you could see the mess behind me, it looks like there's Christmas in my bedroom right now. And so I'm doing all the food and the games. And if my mom would host, then uh, I'll do everything else. I didn't want her to have to worry. So I know she'll do a handful of other things too. And it's just a small family function, but our family's kind of big. So it's going to be fun. And there's a lot on my plate as far as school and what in church, like, when everything just hits all at once. And I was like, okay, Lord, show me what's most important. Help me to weed out what's not, what can be forgotten. So that's been my last 2 weeks. and it's all wonderful, wonderful stuff. I'm happy to be able to do it. So, but yeah, I feel like my mind is on fast forward though.
Right, and just going constantly. Jen, what about you? How's it been for you?
Yeah, so we're having a good week. It's Valentine's week. I guess this will come out after Valentine's Day, but so we're doing all of the fun elementary school things, getting ready to exchange, sweet little things at co-op and stuff like that. And I'm just kind of holding on to my last little kiddos who still do things like that. So that's been fun. Yeah, it's been good. We'll just make the older ones do it a few more years just for my benefit. Like
Mhm.
I think that that's gonna be the things that I miss the most, or all of the extravagant holiday
Mhm.
things, like just deciding to spend a random Thursday baking Valentine's cookies and things like that. So I am trying to relish the moment this week and not be absorbed by the stress because I do have like a million other things like on the fringe. But so just trying to be present this week.
Yes.
That
Um,
was the hardest part of homeschooling for me was that I hated for my children to miss the Valentine's party. That was always my favorite party in school. I
Yeah.
loved Valentine's. And I was like, oh, so they've always made their own Valentines for each other. And then, of course they sent them out to different friends, but we didn't have that Valentine's Day party. And I didn't, I loved getting that same Valentine from Kevin Sperlin that was always say, I want you for my Valentine, and that's no baloney. And it had a big like sausage, and he's got these eyes on it. He gave me the same Valentine every year through elementary school, and it was always my favorite. It made me laugh.
that's so funny. Shout out to
Shout out to Kevin
him.
Sperlin. Hello.
Oh man, that's amazing. Yeah, I am. Yeah, not looking forward to all the Valentine's Day parties because I have to remember to bring the Valentines for like for Kaylin's class 2 days in a row. Got to remember, which is not difficult if I didn't have other things that I'm thinking about constantly other than, my preschoolers Valentine's Day cards. So
Right.
we'll see if they make them to school. Hopefully, here's to hoping. I'm sure they will. But no, I'm excited. It's gonna be a good week at school, and it's been crazy. We started track practice yesterday, which was so much fun. And so some of the boys were this morning or this afternoon, they were like, Miss Rajowski, we're so sore after you made us do all those squats and those burpees. And I was like, you'll be fine. Like if I could do them with you and I could move the next day and come to work, you're 13, you're fine. So they're funny, but anyway, it's gonna be an interesting season, but I'm so excited. But I'm even more excited about today because we kind of kicked off last week, and I don't know about you guys, but I was kind of going into like posting like, last week. So I was like, I don't even know how this is gonna go, like viewership wise. because obviously we don't do this to have, I mean, I think this last week more people watched or listened to that episode than like have any other episode. And I've like had so many people reach out to me since that episode. And I love that. I love that they're reaching out to all of us because it's fun to like get to be like, oh, this is the purpose of it, right? Like building up other people, building up the body of Christ. But I did not see it going as well as it went. And so I'm excited about today because today I'm not gonna laugh as hard, hopefully. I don't know, who knows, honestly, like when
Who knows?
we're in reality, but the editing process of last week's was fun too. Um, but no, so today we're just gonna be talking about emotional intimacy, right? So we talked last week about physical intimacy and the importance of that in marriage. And I think I know we prefaced last week with this is not necessarily one that our we want our parents to listen to. But that's not this disclaimer. This disclaimer is just to say, like, we said it multiple times last week, but once again, when we're talking about intimacy, we're talking about intimacy in the context of marriage. So we're talking about intimacy in the context of what God created it to be. And so for those of you out there who are listening and you're like, what are talk about intimacy? We're talking about in marriage. I just wanted to make that abundantly clear. Because I think that's important. I'm sorry. That was a little rabbit trail, but I was like, before we jump into now emotional intimacy, because I think that sometimes um, emotional intimacy, especially when you're dating or you're engaged and you're getting close to being married, you start to obviously you're getting married, you're getting excited, you like start to grow closer together. Obviously, as you start to plan your life more logistically, if that makes sense, like bank accounts when like you're engaged, you're trying to figure out, are we going to have two bank accounts, one, whatever. But I think sometimes it can be a problem when we grow to um, what's the word I was looking for? Emotionally intimate with like a fiance. Don't do that. So we're talking about in the context of marriage. And so we just need to lay that out there. Sorry, ladies. I'm sorry for the rant. But so let's talk about emotional intimacy in marriage. Jen, what does that mean? What does that look like? And it can look like something different for all of us, but in your life, in your house, what is that?
Yeah, so I thought a lot about emotional intimacy this week, sort of myself from the perspective of emotional maturity, because I had to learn to be very emotionally mature in my marriage. And I think when you become one, like Paul says that marriage is a profound mystery. And I love that phrasing in the scripture because it really is a you don't know, until you do it, like until you're there. And still, it's still kind of mysterious how it works, how two people can become one and people who are so different. My husband and I, we complement each other nicely, but we are night and day in some of our thinking. He's much more planned, prepared, structured, and I'm much more like, oh, let's have a party. Like he has to rein me in. So for us to understand um, each other fully and inside of that profound mystery really required some work to get to know each other emotionally and to connect emotionally. And that means not only, okay, my husband is this type A personality, but why is he? What made him this way? What
Mhm.
experiences in his childhood or nature versus nurture? Like, was he born this way? Why does he act this way? And for me, it was important for me to understand why I respond to certain situations with emotion, and how I could become in control of those emotions. And so it was important for him to understand. I think I've maybe shared this example before, but my husband came from a household where I want to do honor. I think I've said this before, but where, if someone became angry, they did not steward that well. So he didn't want to repeat that. So if he got really angry, he would take a break. He would go off and, someplace else. Well, I come from a background where someone left and never came back. So when you have those two situations, when he leaves to cool off, all I could recognize was he's leaving, like he's gone. Will he come back? Well, after 26 years, I can say that he's probably going to go. He doesn't do that anymore. Like we learned years ago, early on before we had kids, that just was not how we could do things. We had to learn each other intimately as far as our emotions and what would work and what wouldn't. So I don't know that that's a good explanation for emotional intimacy. I guess it's just being connected to him in a way that I'm connected to no one else. And I just made that up. We probably should Google the definition. Maybe one of you have a better. But that is where I say, that we kind of build some walls around our marriage, and there are things that occur within those walls. And this is, again, a healthy marriage. We're not keeping secrets from the outside world. This is just where we have secrets between us. We have details between us. We have nicknames for each other, that we don't share with the outside world. And that, like, emotional enrichment is just sort of a really safe place, a place where I can kind of just let my hair down and know everything's okay. This is a safe place to be because we have built this emotional intimacy. I have gotten to the point where I know how Jared's going to react in 99% of situations. I know if A, B, and C happens, he's going to react in D, and I've spent my life studying him, and he's done the same for me, and that takes work and effort, and it's not quite as easy as physical intimacy. you know, um, it takes a little bit more discipline to sort of learn to understand, seek to understand. So I'd love to hear how you guys define emotional intimacy, and I definitely want to speak to emotional maturity maybe in a few minutes. But for now, I'll pass the baton and see if somebody else has a better definition.
Yeah, Emily, go ahead. Run with it.
Well, I do not have a definition. But when you said study my spouse, study my man, um, that I was going to say the same thing. I actually have it written down here on my notes as well. Um, but I think a beautiful example of intimacy is of course found in Genesis 2, 24 and 25. And he says, this is, or 23 through 25, this is now bone of my bone and flesh of my flesh, and she shall be called woman, for she was taken out of man. And this is why a man leaves his father and mother and is united to his wife, and they become one flesh. And Adam and his wife were both naked, and they felt no shame. um, so last week we talked about physical intimacy, and then feeling no shame. That's that emotional intimacy that is what the Lord intends. He wants us to be one flesh. When he's making Adam in the garden, and he says, it is not good for man to be alone. um, I am married to Jason Bird because it's not good for him to be alone. We are better together than we are separate. And he needs me and I need him. We need each other. The reason we got married is not because we want to have babies or we want to just do life. It's we need companionship. We need each other. And so for us to do well together, to have that intimacy, I've got to study him. I've got to know him and get to know him. And I've also got to know what my purpose is in marriage. um, I am Jason Bird's helpmeet. I I grew up. My parents split up when I was young, and so I've got a very strong mom, and even though I would not say that we are feminists at all. There is a little bit of there's a little subtle feminist thoughts that just get planted into your mind that I am strong, I can do it. And she's very much a strong, powerful woman, still is, and I love that about her. And she has demonstrated. I'm not saying anything bad about my mom. She's demonstrated a really, really, really good example of a godly wife. But when I came into marriage, I I was really strong. I was bullheaded. And, if he's not going to help me, then I'll just do it myself because I can. I've seen my mom do it alone for years and years. I can do it. I don't need his help. And when I finally came to the conclusion that I am his helper and that we are not in competition, but rather I'm his complement. That helped us grow together in that he needs me for us to be emotionally intimate. He needs me to need him. I am um, I am to serve him, and he wants to serve me, but I am not in competition with him. So when I surrender myself, I found freedom when I finally let him be the leader, be the head of the household. The Lord has created him to do that and to be that person. And when I finally let go and let him just take control, oh, what a blessing that is. I love the fact that I don't worry about my vehicle. He takes care of that. When we're on vacation, he plans the route. I don't worry about any of that. And I'll wake up like, where are we? I don't know. I trust him, and he's content to just take the wheel and go. And I'm content to just follow blindly. um, but what I have learned as far as being intimate with Jason Bird emotionally is I love to serve him. And matter of fact, last night we were out and he's had some really tough days at work. And I just don't feel like I was like, I don't know how to help him. And I was like, Jason Bird, how can I serve you? What can I do to make life easy for you? What? And his first answer is like he said, I love when you've got coffee made for me in the morning. And I don't he said that's one thing I don't have to think about. Or and then he's like, and then if you want to do a little dance while you serve me some coffee. So, we'll see about the dance. But um, asking him regularly, how can I help you? Um, how can I be praying for you? And it's different. I ask him every morning, how can I pray for you today? And that brings my heart close to him. And if he asks me the same thing, or when he asks me questions of, tell me about your day, and it's not, he doesn't have his phone and he's listening to me, and I need his attention. First Peter 3:7 says that our husbands are supposed to live with us in an understanding way. Um, I want him to know what's going on in my heart and in my head. We've got to communicate. So emotional intimacy for me is about serving and about communication and us talking and just really knowing what's going on in each other's lives. And truly, I love that you mentioned studying how they respond, how they react, just really, really getting to know my man and him knowing me. So that wasn't a definition though. I didn't give you I need to look it up. Let me Google it.
So I think that intimacy, like I think you both have kind of touched on it, but it's that ability to like share with someone, right? Like to share your thoughts, to feel comfortable, to feel no shame, kind of like, oops, just slammed my drawer on accident, sorry. To feel no shame in sharing certain dreams or hopes or things going on in your life that you're just like, man, I am overwhelmed with this or whatever it might be. And so sharing those thoughts and those ideas. And so, um, I, as you both were kind of sharing, I was just kind of thinking through, um, well, it started with the maturity, right? So I'm the one who used to like dip. Like I was the one who would be like, okay, peace out, Girl Scout. Like you're on my nerves. I'm gonna go for a little drive. And yeah, like I was like, I'll come back. I'll come back. But that's what was modeled for me, right? Like leaving and being gone was modeled, and that's not a healthy model. So we're not here for that. Um, and I remember the first time I ever, like in the middle of an argument, got like left, and it was when we were in college, and um, I just got out of Joseph's car. I was like, whatever, and got out. And like, he's like, where are you going? I was like, I'm done having this conversation. Like, I'm literally done with this conversation right now. Like, I don't want to have it anymore. It's stupid. I'm leaving. And I just got out and walked away. And we were dating at the time. So, whatever. But I had just come, I was very young. I was 18, whatever. That doesn't mean that, married 22-year-old Brianna well, I was 21 when we got married, but like I also was like, okay, I'm going somewhere. And then I would always turn off my tracking. I was so petty, so petty. Um, but now it's different. I don't leave. I don't go places. I will walk away for, and he knows like, okay, I'm going to go take a minute, calm down, calm myself down, because what's not good is if I stay in this combative situation, because what's going to happen is I'm going to hurt your feelings because my flesh is not, it's starting to come out of me, and my pride is starting to dig its feet into the ground, and it's not going to be good. So, like this is, I just finished a month through the Sermon on the Mount. And so the Beatitudes, we starts us off strong. Talking about being a peacemaker, like blessed are the peacemakers. And then he says, blessed are the meek. And I had to be like, Lord, that's not a title that because I think when I used to think meek in like a marriage, I was like, oh, you're the weaker specimen, like you are, but that's not at all what Jesus was saying in the Sermon on the Mount. Um, at all, he's just like be humble because you're literally dirty rags before me, so be humble. But so I've had to start praying like, okay, Lord, like help me to be a peacemaker. And that's been that thing that's been kind of that shift in maturity has been like, which shows you that it's been a month and we had a fight that caused me to be like, help me to be a peacemaker, Jesus, because I'm about to not be. I'm about to be the opposite of what you said to me in the Sermon on the Mount. Um,
I'll
and
be a pot stirrer.
Right. Oh, yeah. Oh, I will just bring the pot. I'll bring the pot to the party. And Joseph is very much so non-confrontational. And so he is, he's constant. And I'm like, I'm constant, but sometimes my constant's up here and not. But I think when he and I are having, I feel safe enough with him to have those conversations where even out loud during our conversation, I was like, prayed in my head. And I even said, like, I'm praying right now that I'll be a peacemaker because I'm so upset right now that I don't want to be, but I've been praying that the Lord would make me a peacemaker. And he actually said, you need to stop praying that because the Lord's giving me more problems with you. It's like, well, stop praying to be a peacemaker because now I got problems with you. And I was like, that's on you and Jesus. You need to handle that with him because I am solving the world's problems today. I'm a peacemaker. Um, but feeling safe enough, like that feeling of that safety that comes with knowing, like I could say the most outlandish things, within reason. Obviously, we're not talking about insanity. But I could say things and be like, this is what I'm thinking, or this is how I understand, even with scripture, like, he's a pastor. So sometimes it's like, oh, like, a lot of things, but that safety to question, well, this is my perspective on that. And like, this is how I view it. And maybe some things we view differently. I mean, not like biblically, where the gospel doesn't change. But just the safety and security that there is in knowing someone loves you enough to drop their pride, because that's what he's done for 13 years, dropped his pride to pursue my heart. And we call it dropping the rope and not playing tug of war against each other. And so dropping his rope and desiring that for 13 years, he's made me feel safe enough because he's dropped his rope. So apparently, year 13 is the year that I decide to drop mine too and be like, okay, I'll be a peacemaker. But I gotta stop praying like that because now I'm like, why are you trying to fight me? What are you doing? Like, my last name is about to come out of me, and y'all want that, sir. But anyway, so I think just being emotional intimacy is being so closely connected that there's the safety because you can share those things that are the dreams and the wishes and the desires and all of those things. Knowing someone so well that you just, I don't know, like I don't know how to say it, but like you just click. Joseph and I are complete opposites. Like you were saying, absolute complete opposites, but we complement one another where I don't know that apart from Jesus and like the desires that he's given us, because we love each other, we love being married, like it doesn't make sense. Like we're complete opposites.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So anyway, but it's been a
Well,
team.
I think for this podcast to be helpful, we need to give practical ways. How do you promote emotional intimacy within your marriage? So what are some things you guys do to, I mean, practical, what can I put into practice at home? Something that works for you guys. What brings you emotionally close to Joseph or to Jared?
Yeah, so I think for us, and we call this ego versus emotion, but it's recognizing that the Bible is very specific and wives respect your husbands, husbands love your wives. And just
Yeah.
recognizing that sometimes because I'm the strong personality too, that's no secret. And Jared is a typical second born, a little bit more docile in that way. Like he won't fight for something quite as hard as I will, unless it's really important. And so recognizing that when we are having a disagreement, I need to be really careful not to disrespect him. And that is so tempting because sometimes when you're upset, you do those things, you throw those darts and you say those words that because you're having an emotional, like I may be having an emotional hissy fit. And that's where that emotional maturity comes in, is where I need to recognize that I have to be in control of my emotions and not let my emotions manipulate my husband. Or not allow myself to manipulate my husband with my emotions. So recognizing that cycle of he needs to feel respect, I need to feel love. How can we have this conversation in a way where you still feel respected and I still feel loved? So, and I think that probably goes back to like the love languages. How do you feel loved, right? So I feel loved when you listen to me, like words of affirmation for sure. So when I feel like I've been heard, I feel loved. So if I want to say something, I have to be careful not to disrespect with my words. I need to communicate respect so that he can recognize that he has heard what I've said, and so I feel loved. Am I making sense, like
Yeah.
with that loop? So practical ways of doing that is just knowing, um, you know, knowing how to watch what you say. Don't do things that would come across as disrespectful. Um,
And
so
the
that's ego
tone in
versus
which you say
emotion.
it
The
and
tone,
the
the stomping of
tone.
the feet.
Oh, I still can't manage my tone. And Jason Bird's like he immediately shuts off and I don't even
Mm-hmm.
realize what tone I have, but I'll
Mm-hmm.
speak loud and I'll speak
Yes.
passionately,
Yes.
Same,
Yes.
but
same.
Yeah,
I
and
do
it's
speak with passion.
recognizing it's like that you referenced First Peter 3, and that's what I wanted to talk about a little bit with emotional maturity because Peter talks about not focusing so much on your outward beauty. I
Yeah.
guess I'll read it, but being focused on your inner self. Your beauty should not come from outward adornment, such as braided hair, the wearing of gold jewelry, and fine clothes. Instead, it should be that of your inner self, the unfading beauty of a gentle and quiet spirit. Okay, God
Mm.
didn't create me to be gentle and quiet. Like I am loud and I am not often gentle, but the outward beauty that I have can quickly fade if I am being really nasty. if
Mhm.
my inner spirit is not quiet and gentle. And that's something that I have had to practice. Like I have bit, holes into my tongue over the years. And it doesn't mean that I don't assert or insert my opinion or my thoughts. It just means that I do it in the right way and in the right time. And often I'm praying about it. I've found so often that if I will pray, Lord, help me to convey this the right way, or Lord, can you help us find resolution in this because this feels like an impasse, I'm telling you, 9 times out of 10, it's almost instant that there will be resolution.
Agreed.
And I think it's because God wants us to have that right relationship with one another because that's what best glorifies Him. So I don't know if that's super practical, but just recognizing like the ego versus emotion, the man versus woman kind of mentality can kind of guide you in how you react and respond.
Mhm.
And I think, um, I like what you said about the the love languages, like knowing how that person is perceiving what you're saying, because I also have a tone all the time, and it's not on purpose. It's just literally the way I talk most of the time. I could be saying the happiest, most exciting thing, and just it says you have a tone. I'm like, I think that's just the way I talk. And so it is for me, it's watching my tone, but understanding that the way that whether what I'm saying is meant to harm or it's meant to, like, making sure that I am being aware that I have literally the ability to speak life and death into whatever situation I'm speaking over. And so it is but yeah, no, I loved that you said that. Sorry, that was a little side note, but I think practically remembering that you're on the same team. Like
Hmm.
you are on the same team. And sometimes it feels like you're not. Sometimes you're like, man, he just doesn't understand what I'm talking about or what I'm going through, or he just doesn't get it. And that might feel true, but it's not true. Like he might not understand, but maybe you also haven't communicated. Like I think sometimes men get this like rap that like, oh well, you don't understand women, you don't and I get it. They're like there's some things that even women don't understand about themselves. So I think remembering that you're on the same team and like he wants to communicate with you. Like he wants to be there to support you, or you know what I mean? Because you're on the same team and sometimes we pit ourselves against one another instead of being like, you know what, we're on the same team and you completely misunderstood what I said. And that's okay because I'm going to explain it in a calm way, what I said. One of my favorite things to say now, whenever Joseph and I have a conversation, and Joseph always, one of his things is we give the benefit of the doubt. Like we give each other the benefit of the doubt. And I know that in his heart of hearts, he would never purposefully hurt me. So if he says something that hurts me, I will say to him, okay, this is what I'm hearing you say. Am I correct? And if he says yes, I will that's then when we have to pray about being a peacemaker because that man has just said exactly what I thought he was saying. No, I'm just kidding. But usually I mean, like, that's not been the case ever. And like, I've never had a situation with him where I say, okay, this is what I just heard, how I heard you character assassinate me. And this is what you said. And he will say, absolutely not. I'm so sorry. Like, that's not what I meant. Let me rephrase it in a way that makes sense. And so he will then rephrase, because we're on the same team. He's not going to assassinate his partner, but in the moment, it feels like it. So taking that step back to say, we're on the same team. If we want to grow together and closer, and those small little like moments where you can say, okay, I'm dropping my rope. What was it that you meant by this? Because this is what I understood you to say. Those moments make when the bigger moments come, it's easier to drop your rope and come together and just and walk through life together. And it brings you closer
Mhm.
together because you've not gone to bed or you've not like had this big dispute where you're able to come together and say, "Oh, okay, this is what it was." And sometimes it might be that they really meant to hurt your feelings. But communicating that is Joseph does not intentionally hurt my feelings, so I can't speak from experience. He's pretty
My
great.
friend Christy always says being clear is kind. And that has stuck in the back of my head. If we are clear with each other, even if it's, yeah, I actually was trying to hurt you because I'm mad. But I love that going back and saying, is this really what you meant?
That's good.
This is what I heard. I don't know if that's what you meant or not, but this is how I took it. I think that's brilliant. But also, I mean, I know we've kind of gone to emotional intimacy when things are difficult, but I also think we need to talk about when just how to maintain just good relationship, like and keeping close day in and day out. What do we do? I know as far as Jason Bird goes, I need to compliment that man. He needs to know that I know I've said this before on here, but that I am his biggest cheerleader. And he needs to hear me talking about him with other people, not just to his face, but he needs to know that I am for him, whether I'm in the room with him or I'm not, that he is top dog in my book. And I love when I have heard him talk about me, or even not too long ago, I saw in an email something he had written about me. I was like, my goodness. And I was like, does he really feel that way? And that kind of thing just draws us close that I've got to compliment him, tell him that he looks good, tell him that he's smart, tell him that I am so proud of him. That he's such a good daddy. He's such a good husband. And sometimes even when I'm angry, it's like that kind of diffuses that no matter what, even though I'm upset with you, you are a good man, and I'm so glad that you're mine. And we will get through this. And I think you were brilliant to talk about praying through the moment when things are difficult. Lord, give me wisdom of how to handle this because, and sometimes He will shut my mouth. I don't have to always say my words. Usually, when I begin to pray, God, help me to figure this out. Help us to be one. Most of the time, He closes my mouth, and I hate that because when you mentioned pride a while ago, Bree, you're talking straight to me. Um, but a lot of the time, well, my mama always said, you don't regret the things you don't say. And usually when I'm trying to talk, the more when many words are present, there's sin as well. So sometimes just being quiet and relationship over being right, uh,
Yeah.
it keeps us close. And and you mentioned conversation as well. I think we've just got to talk. We got to talk about the day in and the day out of what's going on. How do you feel? I was frustrated with when this happened, or this is something really great. Or look at this purchase. This for $9.99 and it had been $29, and he just rolls his eyes. Okay, Emily, I know. I'm always telling him about the good deals, and they're not always good deals. They're usually $9.99, but the little retail thing says, originally $29.99.
Great deal, girl.
I think you touched on something really important too, Emily, though, and maybe we've discussed this before, but the ability to find the truth, amidst the feelings. So
Yes.
you're right, because sometimes I can convince myself that this is the worst man in the whole world and he's out for himself and he doesn't care about us. And I have to stop that train and go, wait a second. What is true? Because your emotions, I can only speak from the perspective of a woman, but I know that my emotions can just run with things, and I've gotten better about that, because I've stopped and I've said, okay, what is true? Is he selfish? No. No, not a selfish bone in his body. I mean, can he be selfish at times? We all can be, but is that who he is? No, it's not. And so just recognizing whatever the situation is, however your emotions are trying to whatever lies they're telling you is just trying to find what's true. And I love how you talking about the good, because that's one thing, that's the feedback that I got from my daughter this week in the house, because she said that she hears so much negativity about marriage, that marriages don't last and marriage is
Mhm.
hard and, all of these things. And so I feel like their generation does kind of get kind of dumped on the bad stuff about marriage. So I think it is important. I think the point of last week was to talk about how we have fun within our marriages. And I think emotionally we have fun too. My husband and I, we have dream sessions where we're like, okay, you can say anything you want. Like, where I'll say, okay, we're going to build, a brand new sunroom on the back of the house where I can sit and homeschool. There's no limits on these dream sessions. There's no financial boundary. There's no reality typically, where we just kind of dream about what do we want to do? What do we want next? My husband is the best at pulling out note cards at dinner and passing a pencil to everybody, and saying, hey, what did you love that we did this month or this year? What do you want to make sure that we do again this month or this year?
Oh,
And I think those are fun, practical things that help us focus on the good. And will we achieve, my biggest dream of adding a giant sunroom onto the back of the house? Maybe not, but I bet that man will build me a deck. There will be something that comes out of it, that may not be the size of the dream that I cast. But he'll find some way to fulfill that dream for me. So, marriage is so good.
mhm.
It really is. It is a profound mystery, but it's so good and it's so sweet, and it is just such a great adventure, that I never want young people to feel like, I don't know, I think it's too hard, and often they don't have good marriages modeled for them, and especially the ones that grow up in our own houses, they see the good, the bad, and the ugly. Like, they know that this is good. But even my own child was like, I don't want to serve anyone the way that you serve him. And I don't serve. I mean, last night I brought my husband dinner to his chair. We never ever do that. And he was like, I don't feel right with you serving me. And I'm like, oh, but I want to.
I
So it's
want
not
to.
that she sees, me like, washing his feet or something outrageous, but I do work really hard to create this environment to be a place where when he comes home in the evening, he is free to relax, right? To leave whatever he was bringing home with him, he can leave it at the door. And I do work really hard at creating that environment. And what she sees now from her 19-year-old perspective is that that's a lot of work. And I'm like, oh, but no, that's the joy of my heart. Like, I want to create this environment. So I don't know. I think I went off on a tangent. But marriage is fun, and embrace the profound mystery that is marriage.
Yes. Marriage is like yes, it's fun. Like it's great. You're with your best friend. Like, and even when you are like on the days when you're tired or you're exhausted, like you're sitting on the couch watching whatever it is with your best friend, and it's great. Like it's just it's great. There are hard times, but that's what builds, right? Like that's trials produce character and perseverance and all those things. And that's what brings you even closer together. And it's great. And you get to sit and watch TV, and reality TV junkies. We are. It's bad. I know where it's bad. We have our favorite reality TV. We're like, it's Thursday. Let's go. Let's watch it. So anyway, but this has been a fun conversation. Very there's a lot less blushing this time. So that was much better for me just personally. But it's been fun, and I think that anytime that we can brag about our husbands and how great they are is always fun too, because going back to that respect and love thing, like when you say negative things about your husband, obviously everyone has arguments, like whatever. I was not throwing Joseph under the bus because I started most of them. um, but that was not me trying to throw him under the, that's me showing how much of a peacemaker that man is and how it's taken 13 years to get here. But just anytime we can brag on them and encourage people while doing it makes me excited. So um, anyway, well, ladies, it was wonderful, and we are so excited to be back. And this is like what the third one back, and I'm so excited that we're back. So we will be back with a new episode in 2 weeks. It is after Valentine's Day when you're hearing this, but we hope that you had a wonderful Valentine's Day and ate lots of chocolate because that's fun. So we will talk to you guys later.